My name is Eleanor Hayes, and the last words my sister ever spat at me before she was cut out of my life for good were, "You think you're better than all of us. You always have." She was shaking with rage, her face blotched red, as if my very existence was an insult she couldn't tolerate. And the worst part? She didn't just mean me. She meant my husband, my children, my home, my job. Every scrap of stability I had fought to build was poison to her. That was the night I understood how envy destroys families. And that was the night I swore I wouldn't just protect myself from her anymore. I would make sure she drowned in the bitterness she had been pouring into me for decades. I grew up in Brighton, in a semi-detached house that always smelled faintly of damp carpets and fried onions. My parents worked hard. Dad in a mechanic's shop, Mum in a primary school cafeteria. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't destitute either. My younger sister, Lydia, and I shared a bedroom until I was 14. She was 2 years younger, dark-haired, sharp-featured, and from the beginning there was a current of rivalry between us. When I got good grades, she called me a teacher's pet. When I bought my first second-hand dress with babysitting money, she said I looked like I was trying too hard. At the time, I brushed it off as normal sibling bickering. I didn't understand then how envy, left unchecked, metastasizes. By the time we were adults, the differences between us widened. I worked part-time while studying, saved diligently, and clawed my way into a junior marketing role that turned into a stable career. I married Thomas, who treated me with respect, and together we built a life that was modest but steady. Lydia, on the other hand, drifted from job to job, relationship to relationship, always chasing shortcuts. She'd move in with boyfriends after a few weeks, then move back into my parents' house when things inevitably fell apart. And every time, the comparison loomed. "Eleanor's so reliable," my mother would sigh, not realizing those words landed on Lydia like gasoline on fire. The dig started subtle. At Sunday dinners, she'd mock my perfect little family. When I bought a car, she sneered, "Must be nice not to live in the real world." At Christmas, when Thomas gifted me a necklace, she muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "He's trying to buy your love." I told myself not to react. I smiled, smoothed things over, told Thomas to ignore it. But deep inside, resentment was building. Not just at her, but at myself, for always letting her get away with it. Then came the betrayal that set everything ablaze. 2 years ago, Thomas and I decided to invest in renovating a small cottage in the countryside. It was a big step for us, something we'd dreamed about for years. I confided in Lydia, stupidly thinking that maybe if I included her, she'd feel less left behind. I told her about the savings we'd scraped together, the bank loan we'd secured, the builder we'd hired. She nodded, asked questions, even smiled as if she was happy for me. But weeks later, I began hearing whispers. Our cousin called me hesitant. "Eleanor, did you really say you and Thomas were struggling to pay the mortgage? That you might lose the house?" My blood went cold. That wasn't true. I'd never said it. It spread like wildfire. Lydia had told anyone who would listen that Thomas was drowning in debt, that we were secretly borrowing money from her, that our marriage was cracking under financial strain. None of it was real, but lies don't need to be real to do damage. Friends looked at me differently. Neighbors grew quiet when I walked past. Even colleagues seemed to hesitate when I mentioned taking on a new project. I confronted her one night, voice shaking. "Why are you saying these things?" She smirked, that cruel little curl of her lip I'd seen since childhood. "Because I'm tired of everyone acting like you're perfect. Let's see how they like you when they know the truth." The truth. She used that word as if her poison were honesty. I went home that night, sat on the edge of my bed, and cried until my chest ached. Thomas tried to comfort me, but I wasn't just sad. I was angry. Angry that my sister's envy had infected everything I'd built. Angry that she was so willing to destroy me just because she couldn't stand my happiness. And beneath that anger, a darker thought took root. If envy could destroy families, then perhaps I could use it to destroy her. That was the night I started planning my revenge. Not impulsive, not loud. Cold. Calculated. Because if Lydia wanted to drag me into the mud, I would make sure she stayed buried in it. I didn't need to wait long to see Lydia's envy spiral into something uglier. After the rumors about my supposed financial struggles spread, she grew bolder. At family gatherings, she'd slip in little comments with a sly smile. "Oh Ellie, how's that big mortgage treating you? Must be stressful." My parents frowned, confused, but didn't challenge her. When I tried to correct the lie, she cut me off. "Don't worry, we all know you like to put on a brave face." She weaponized sympathy, turning me into some tragic figure, while painting herself as the caring sister who knew the real story. The damage wasn't just social. One afternoon, I received a call from my bank. They'd had an inquiry flagged under my name. Someone had attempted to access my account, failing the security questions. My stomach dropped. I knew who it was. Lydia had lived in my shadow long enough to know my maiden name, my pet's name, the streets we grew up on. Questions she could answer. She was digging, trying to find cracks, trying to catch me slipping. That was the moment I realized I couldn't just defend myself. If I kept patching holes, she'd keep tearing new ones open. I had to turn her envy back on her. Use it like a knife she couldn't resist holding, even if it cut her. I started small, planting seeds. At the next family dinner, I casually mentioned that Thomas and I were considering buying into a small business, a cafe near the seafront. Lydia's eyes lit up, greedy and suspicious all at once. "A cafe? You," she said, scoffing. But I caught the flicker in her expression, the calculation already beginning. Later that night, I got a text from her. "Hey, about that cafe, need investors?" I didn't reply. I wanted her curiosity to fester. Over the next few months, I fed her carefully curated pieces of information. A misplaced email left open on my laptop when she visited, showing exaggerated projections of profits. A phone call with Thomas, staged just loud enough for her to overhear. If this works, it could change everything for us. Each time, I acted annoyed when she pressed for details, which only made her dig deeper. Lydia couldn't stand the idea of me having something she didn't. And she certainly couldn't resist the chance to prove she was smarter than me, more cunning, more deserving. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Every rumor she spread, every text dripping with faux concern, every attempt she made to undermine me. I gathered witnesses, quietly spoke to relatives who'd overheard her lies, and asked them to write down what they remembered. I built a case, a dossier of envy turned toxic. The breaking point came when Lydia crossed into outright sabotage. She showed up unannounced at my workplace one afternoon, stormed into the lobby, and loudly accused me of stealing money from our parents to fund my little side projects. My colleagues froze, horrified, while security escorted her out. I held my composure, but inside, I was burning. She had humiliated herself more than me. But I knew this was just the beginning. That night, I pulled Thomas into my plan fully. "She won't stop," I told him, my voice steady. "So we're going to let her hang herself with her own envy." He looked at me, cautious but supportive. "What do you mean?" I slid a folder across the table, filled with every piece of evidence I'd collected. "We're going to give her what she wants. A chance to destroy me. And when she takes it, we'll make sure everyone sees the truth." It wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It wasn't even about peace. It was about teaching Lydia the cost of envy, and making sure she paid it in full. I set the stage slowly, carefully, because Lydia was predictable in her hunger. If I made the bait too obvious, she'd pounce too quickly. I needed her to think she was clever, that she was uncovering something I didn't want her to see. So Thomas and I built the illusion of an opportunity, one she couldn't resist twisting to her advantage. We fabricated a business plan for the cafe. On paper it looked shiny, irresistible. Inflated revenue forecasts, a vague promise of a silent partner, who'd already pledged a large sum, and just enough gaps to make it seem like we were hiding something. I left the folder accidentally, in my car one evening when Lydia asked for a lift home. She spotted it within minutes, her eyes darting over the bold title on the cover. Seaview Cafe Expansion Proposal. "What's this?" she asked, voice too casual. "Nothing," I said quickly, snatching it back, the performance rehearsed. "Just some ideas Thomas and I are toying with. Forget you saw it." That single act of reluctance was all it took. By the next week, Lydia had cornered Mum, telling her in a hushed, worried tone that Thomas and I were funneling all our money into a risky cafe venture, that we'd probably lose everything. She won't admit it, Lydia said. But they're desperate. I'm scared she'll come begging when it all collapses. I knew this because Mum called me the same night, her voice strained. Eleanor, love, are you two in trouble? Lydia says. I cut her off gently. Mum, we're fine. Lydia is confused. I didn't argue further. I wanted the lie to spread. I wanted Lydia to feel powerful, convinced she had the upper hand. Meanwhile, I kept feeding her crumbs. I forgot to log out of my email once while she borrowed my laptop, leaving up a draft message to a supposed investor. I staged a tense phone call with Thomas within her earshot. If this leaks, it'll ruin us. Lydia's ears practically twitched. Every move was deliberate, every slip calculated. And true to form, she took the bait. By spring, the rumors were everywhere. Cousins whispered that Thomas and I were drowning in debt. An uncle asked if I needed to borrow money. A colleague even pulled me aside and said he'd heard through the grapevine that I was about to lose my house. All paths led back to Lydia, her envy pouring out of her like poison she couldn't stop drinking herself. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. I received an email, not from Lydia, but from one of Thomas's professional contacts. Attached was a PDF that Lydia had forwarded widely. It was our fabricated business plan, complete with her notes scribbled in the margins. Look how desperate they are. They're lying to everyone. They'll be ruined in months. She'd sent it to family, friends, and even to Thomas's workplace, hoping to humiliate us. What she didn't realize was that the business plan contained watermarks, tiny invisible tags embedded in the document, each one unique to the copy I had left for her to find. Proof of origin. Proof of betrayal. The day after her mass email, I invited the family over for dinner. Everyone came, curiosity outweighing discomfort. Lydia arrived smug, convinced she had already burned me to the ground. Halfway through the meal, I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. My hands didn't shake as I projected the business plan onto the TV screen, highlighting the watermarks. I explained calmly and methodically how the document was fabricated, how Lydia had stolen it, spread it, and twisted it. I showed screenshots of her emails, her scribbled accusations, her lies laid bare. The room went silent. My mother gasped. My father muttered, Jesus Christ. Lydia's face drained of color. She sputtered. She's lying. She set me up. Her voice cracked with desperation, but no one was listening anymore. The proof was too clean, too damning. I ended with one line, my voice low but sharp as glass. This is what envy does. It destroys families. And tonight, you all saw exactly who's been swinging the axe. Lydia stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. But she didn't win the room back. Not this time. For the first time in years, the spotlight of scrutiny had shifted off me and landed squarely on her. And she had no idea just how much further I was willing to take it. After that night, Lydia's mask slipped completely. For years she'd hidden her envy behind snide jokes and whispers, but now, with her lies exposed, she turned vicious. She flooded my phone with messages, some begging, some threatening. You made me look crazy. You've ruined me. Everyone thinks I'm jealous, but you know you've always lorded it over me. Each one I saved, cataloged, adding to the mountain of proof I'd been building. But what I hadn't expected was how quickly the tide turned in the family. The same relatives who once laughed at her digs or brushed them aside now saw them for what they were. Venom. Cousins who used to sit by her at dinners moved closer to me, quietly apologizing. My parents, especially Mom, struggled most. She tried to excuse it at first. She's just insecure, Eleanor. You know how she is. But even she couldn't ignore the evidence. My father was blunter. She's poisoned. You did right. Hearing those words felt strange, like vindication wrapped in grief. Because as much as I'd fantasized about this moment, the reality was colder. I had pulled the pin, and my family was the shrapnel. Still, Lydia wasn't finished. If envy had been her shadow before, now it was her full skin. She began posting on Facebook, ranting about how I'd set her up, about how I'd always been Mummy's little angel and Daddy's pride. She named me, tagged me, tried to drag me into a mud pit in front of everyone we knew. But every post only made her look more unhinged, especially as I responded with silence. That silence was deliberate. It made her frantic. And frantic people make mistakes. Meanwhile, I took the evidence I had, the mass emails, the forged claims, the harassment texts, and handed them to a solicitor. Lydia's smear campaign wasn't just a family squabble anymore, it was defamation. My solicitor drafted a letter so sharp it could cut glass. Either Lydia ceased her lies and issued a formal retraction, or she'd face legal action. We sent it recorded delivery. When she received it, she exploded. She showed up at my house, banging on the door, screaming, "You can't do this to me. I'm your sister." Thomas stood beside me, calm as stone, as I opened the door just a crack. "I can," I said. "And I will. You wanted to ruin me, Lydia. But all you've done is ruin yourself." Her eyes burned, but I didn't flinch. She hurled insults, swore, cried, begged, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of wavering. I shut the door, locked it, and walked away from the noise. The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. Too quiet. Until the retraction appeared. Lydia, under pressure from the solicitor, posted a statement on her own social media. "I made false claims about my sister and her family. They were untrue, and I regret my actions." It was short, stilted, and clearly forced. But it was public. And it was enough. The fallout was brutal for her. Friends unfriended her. Her reputation collapsed in our town. People she once gossiped with avoided her in supermarkets. Even at family gatherings, she sat isolated, no longer the one with the biting comments, because everyone knew those comments were daggers dipped in envy. As for me, I didn't feel triumphant, not exactly. Revenge isn't clean. It leaves scars. My relationship with my parents grew strained. They mourned the daughter they'd lost to bitterness, even as they admitted I had been right. My children asked why Aunt Lydia never visited anymore, and I had to choose between soft lies and sharp truths. I told them envy is like a sickness. If someone refuses to treat it, it can make them cruel. And Lydia? She tried once more, to claw her way back. Months later, she called me late at night, her voice hoarse. "Ellie, I miss you. We're sisters. We shouldn't let this destroy us." For a second, I almost softened. But then I remembered every rumor, every smirk, every poisoned word. "You're right," I said evenly. "We shouldn't have let envy destroy us. But you did. And I won't let you destroy me too." I hung up. Now when people ask about my sister, I tell them the truth. Envy destroyed her long before I exposed it. I simply stopped letting her use me as her cover. Families are supposed to lift each other up, but envy makes some people want to pull you down until you drown beside them. And if you don't cut them off, they'll succeed. If you enjoyed this revenge story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from.